Well, it's Friday evening, 5:30, and this is when I'm going to start work. Because the evenings are long, today is the 9th of July, and it doesn't get dark till about 9:30 or maybe a bit later. So I will do my pruning when all the staff have left the nursery and I have all the time to just fiddle around and look at trees, decide on how to change different shapes of trees. So this past week I've been working on a lot of my old neglected maples. We have so many trees that sometimes they go bad and they need reshaping or restyling. So this is what I'm going to do. And of course, knowing me, most of my maples are on the large size. And I'm going to now bring one or two quite interesting trees for you to see. Now let me just walk around the nursery and show you what I've got. So I will take you around. This is another tall one that I've just tidied up. Many of them lose branches and you've got to regrow branches. So that's all part of the fun. There's a Kabudachi that I've just worked on. Like I always say, I do work on it and then I suddenly realize that, oh gosh, I should have shown you what I'm doing, rather than just do it myself. I should have shown you what I've been doing. So all these trees have been worked on. They're all maples. And this has been a maple week for me. Now this is another huge tree. I'm going to work on this one to show you what I'm going to do with that. And these are the Benichidoris that I've got here, maybe about a dozen, 12 or 15, all in need of training or re-trimming. Many of them require drastic maple decisions. I should have shown you what I was doing on this one. This is a tried maple that I'm restyling, reshaping, creating new taper. So forever things are changing and being done and redone. These are great big Arakawas which need to be restyled, so I'm going to work on these during the next couple of days. So this, as I say, has been a maple week. As if I don't work on maples enough, there's always more maples to work on. There are some very interesting ones that require very drastic and critical decisions, so we're going to work on those as well. So let me now start on that big one that I was showing you. And I'm now going to carry that to the turntable. These are pretty heavy trees. I think that these trees are about 40 kilos. I can still lift 40 kilos on my own, and I will work on it. Now, let's go to the workbench. So let's look at this maple. This is what they call a Kabudachi or Clump style maple. This is quite an old maple. And over the years, what was originally a 5-trunk Kabudachi, these are the trunks that died. Over a period of time, they do die, so I cut it out, and I'm left with 3 trunks. So the front is no longer like this. I'll have to make the front somewhere new this way, and I will retrain it. Maples, in case you are wondering why you get dieback, they do die back quite often. So this is a branch that suddenly, for no rhyme or reason, has died. So you've got to accept maples for what they are. They have this habit of losing branches almost suddenly. You can't explain it, and you've just got to accept it. Now this is another one. This branch has died, so I'm going to get rid of it. I cut it hard back to the trunk so that it will callus well. And this is another one which has died over there. And this has also died. So you can see what a lot of dieback there is. So if you get dieback on your maples, don't blame yourself. Blame the tree, because maples have this habit of suddenly losing branches. This is another branch that has gone. But on the plus side, they will produce new branches very readily. So although you may suddenly get a branch dying, they will break back from old wood, and if you feed it heavily, you will get new branches fairly soon. Now, fortunately, I still have a viable triple trunk tree here, so all is not lost. All I have to do is to direct the energies into the right place. So the front is going to be there. So although the pot is like that, I'm going to make the front like this. So when I come to repotting it, eventually, it's going to be viewed from this side. So anything growing inwards, I will either shorten or reduce very considerably. Try not to let all the growth grow upwards, because most trees have the tendency to have branches growing upwards. And if you don't control that growth, all the energies will be wasted there, and you will not get branching lower down. Now this is a nice tall maple, although this is really the apex, so there's formed an apex at the back. But I've got to control that, otherwise if I don't control it, all the energies go there and these lower branches are going to die. And these long shoots as well, I try to trim them back so that I control the vigor. This is very vigorous. Okay, there's a clutch of branches there, and I think I should control the vigor of this as well. Hopefully by doing this it'll force it to bud back further down. And this has made it look quite presentable. So all I need is more branches growing in here to form the crown. So that is all I need to do. And where I've made the cuts, it's always a good idea to seal it. Many people are always confused when I work on maples and do heavy pruning in the summer. I always say that if you prune heavily in the summer on maples, they callus very quickly, so it is okay to prune. I prune, in fact, a lot of my garden trees throughout the summer, and I've always done that with great success. So it's a fallacy that you should prune maples only in winter. That's not so. In fact, I never prune my maples in the winter. So this is going to be the front of the tree. Can you see? Like that. So that's the view of the triple trunk. That one is a bit long. That one I can reduce even more. Get some of the energies going back. And now I will control the growth like this. And I'm going to feed it heavily. You can use any type of fertilizer. This one has been fed during the year. I use all sorts of different fertilizers. This is an organic fertilizer, fish meal and chicken manure, and some inorganic fertilizer as well. So this one is done, and I'm going to bring another one. So this is an absolute beast. You should have seen me lugging it. It weighs, I think, every bit 35 kilos, heavier than a suitcase. And I walked with it about 50 yards like this. And I'm now going to put it on the turntable. And while I'm doing that, can you see all those beautiful roots that have come through the bottom? All these beautiful roots. I grow it on gravel, so the roots go through and make the tree stronger. These are the leaves from last year. And by growing it in these tight pots, they get a very beautiful nebari. Nice gnarled nebari. So this nebari is really beautiful. I will now just switch the camera to give you a different view. So let's take a closer look at the nebari. Everyone talks about nebari. Nebari is just the root base, how the roots go into the soil. I don't like using foreign terms because many people use foreign terms to bamboozle people, to show that, oh, they know a few Japanese terms, and because they know a few Japanese terms, they're great bonsai people. Nothing could be further than the truth. They usually use that as a mask to hide their ignorance. But anyway, nebari simply means the root base. So if you have a nice root base, it gives character to the tree. And of course, only old trees have this beautiful nebari going into the soil, and it shows that the tree is well anchored in the soil. If you don't have a good nebari or a good root base, it's just like a telegraph pole or electric pole that you see in the countryside carrying the electric wires. So a nebari gives it strength and purpose. So this is an old tree that I imported from Japan more than 30 years ago. And over a period of time it's become very old. And because it's become old, branches do die. Many people think that if you buy a bonsai, it'll stay the same forever. It doesn't do that. Now this tree, you can see there was a branch there that's been taken out. So this was probably a Kabudachi or Clump style with 1, 2, 3, 4, and there was five trunk tree. And that was a tree, the top has died. So over a period of time, it changes. Now this is half dead. So this has changed again. So what am I going to do with it? So when you get a situation like this, you've got to restyle or redesign the tree. And this is what I really like doing. So I'm going to restyle this tree. So we look at this tree carefully and see what the possibilities are. And because it's a gnarled old tree with beautiful root base, it really has the semblance of age. So I will now take you through the various options that are before us and try and take the tree in a new direction. So what goes through my mind when I'm faced with a situation like this? It's obviously an old tree and it's a massive tree, and I want to still continuing to give that age-old look. Because it's got so much ramification, we'll exploit that. We won't cut it all off, but the first thing that strikes me is this trunk which has died. It died there and it shot a new branch, but it continues to look sickly. So this branch is not doing anything. The rest of the tree is still okay. If I just trim the branches back a little bit, it'll give me a better idea as to what the tree will look like. So I always try to help my imagination by giving it some semblance of what it should look like when I've completed working on this tree. So let's turn it around. All these long branches, over 60 centimeter long, have been created or produced during this growing season. That means since early April, they have produced all these long shoots. Also, because we've had such a hot, dry summer, many of these leaves have been burnt by the sun. So this is the only reason why these leaves have looked a bit burnt. But it may look unsightly, but the tree itself is strong. Now, straight away, we have the option of either making this side the front or making the other side the front. If we look at the camera closely, where I'm standing, the camera doesn't give a good view, but I can assure you that this is how I'm looking at it from here. So this is a possible front because this branch is there, but as I've always said, never decide too soon, because what you think may be a good front may turn out to be the back. Now this side is also quite beautiful. This side is also quite beautiful. Added to which, this main trunk, the taller trunk, is leaning slightly here. So this could be a front because it's leaning towards us. So this could be a possible front as well. I think this has possibilities too. But the ugly thing is this trunk here, which is doing nothing. So I think it has to go. Now with deciduous trees like maples, we don't talk of making gins. Gins only work with evergreen trees like yews, junipers, pines. But with maples and other deciduous trees, making gin seems a bit pointless. Also, it looks ridiculous. I think if you had a bit of dead wood, just paint it black like a tree rotting naturally. So I'm going to get rid of this. So I'm just using the silky saw, nothing special about it, and I'm going to cut it out with the saw. I'm looking at the center. Many of you may have read about verticillium disease. I'm not a plant pathologist, but I would think that it could be some form of rotting. Also, if you care to look at the rings or freeze your video and count the rings, the lines are so close. There must be about 40 to 60 rings. Very hard to tell, but I will look at it closely and count the rings. So this thick branch is quite old. So I've got rid of that. Let's throw it away. And we're left with this stump here. I could just let it rot naturally if I wish to. Sometimes if the wood rots, it makes a very natural feature, because in nature, when trees lose their branches or trunks, they rot and you get this beautiful hollow that looks very natural. If you remember, I have a maple called the elephant's foot, and that's completely hollow. Now, having removed that, it doesn't look odd at all. I will let it rot further. So that's only a very rough cut. I'm not bothered about the finishing touches, because it will rot in time and the rotting will be more natural. You notice I'm using my left hand glove. I'm always wary when I use these silky saws. They're ever so sharp and very dangerous. Okay, so although I sometimes say there's no point sealing it, but because it's such a big cut, I am going to seal it just to be on the safe side. Because whenever you make a cut, moisture gets lost from it, and if you lose moisture, the entire tree could die, or just that branch could die. So I'm just sealing it. This, by the way, in case you want to know what it is, it's a European product called lac balsam. It's not that easy to get, but I swear by it. I love it. It's better than many of those other cut pastes that are made in Japan. They all are very effective, but everyone has their own particular preferences, and I prefer to use this. Now, simply cutting that out has made the tree look more interesting. Turn it all around. I must say that I'm looking at the video the video doesn't do the tree justice. When you look at it in real life or in real time, it is much more impressive. It really looks like a big tree. Simply cutting that out, I've changed the shape a bit. I can bring this a bit lower. And for that I will use quite a thick piece of wire. You don't wire maples, but if you wire it very gently and don't leave too many marks, it does work. Now this is a branch on its own, but I still would like to link it. So I can just link it on itself, because I'm just going to do a very, very loose wiring. Or I could just take it around the trunk to anchor it, because it's only going to be loose. Like the S-shaped maples, they're also wired when they're very young. So the upward pointing branch is going to be splayed down like this. Be very careful you don't snap it, because maples are very brittle. They can snap. So having cut that branch out, I'm going to change the front. So for the future, the front of the tree, instead of being here, is going to be here. So it's about 20 degrees or so from the original front. So the front is going to be like so. When I repot it, when I eventually get around to doing it, the front is going to be this way, looking at it this way. In fact, it's such an interesting tree. If you have a big drum pot, you'll get away with all sorts of defects. And I think that is really all I need to do. I will just trim the ends a bit to stimulate more ramification. Ramification comes simply by constantly taking the ends out, but by doing that, you will cause more buds to break. So there's nothing special about making ramification. Just by pruning the ends, you stimulate growth further back. That's all there is to ramification. So maples can be all sorts of different styles. You don't have to have one single set style. And this branch, which we thought could be used as a front, is now a back branch. If we look at it like this is definitely the back now. The front is better on that side. I've just seen another cut that I've made. I better seal that as well. Seal all these cuts. So simply removing that one single half-dead branch has completely altered the look of the tree. For those of you who understand Hindi, when I used to go and demonstrate in India, I'm sure there are some Indian viewers, everyone used to say, Badal shakal ho gaya. That means the shakal badal ho gaya. That means the face. Shakal means the face. Badal, change, has been completely changed. Shakal badal ho gaya. So change the look of the tree just by removing that single one branch. In fact, if I were to move this a little to this side, this could still be a very nice front. I'm now going to just take the camera and give you another view. I'll spin it round and show you what it looks like. So let's have a closer look at this tree now. I've taken that half-dead branch out, so although it's left a big space, it has opened out the tree, and we have the option of looking at the tree like this. Looks like a mighty great big tree. If I just go around and view it from every angle, you see how beautiful that base is. Look at the roots going into the soil. The nebari is beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And this is going to be one branch on this side, and this is going to form the left-hand side of the triangle. And the overall triangular shape is there, which is what you want the basic design to be. Most trees have a triangular shape or a dome shape, however old, however young. Someone may criticize this branch for going upwards, but it fills that space, so I'm not worried about that branch. That branch is quite okay. And that sweeping branch at the back, that comes out and gives depth to the whole tree. So that comes out from the back. That's looking very nice like that. So although I said it, you might want to change the front to look at the tree from this side, I still think we can now go back to the original side and look at the tree like this. So once the dome is established and more branches to the left, it's going to be a beautiful tree. So that's all I need to do with this one. So that was easy, just removing that dead trunk. The whole tree has taken on a new look and a new dimension. This bit on the right hand side could do with a little dome here, because at the moment it's very flat. If it was more domed shape, that would look nicer. So for the time being, that's all I wish to do. You could tighten it up a little bit if we wanted to. In fact, I will do it to create more of the dome. If I take this back, I know that there's a lot of ramification there. If I take all these shoots back, so you get more of a triangle forming there. So I'm going to create more of a dome over here. That sort of effect there. I think a lot of people would love to buy this tree. It's a very, very old tree. When you look at the base, this is a 200 millimeter pair of scissors, and look at the base. It's more than that. It's about 300 millimeter at the base. So much for that one, and I'll move on to another one. Now this is another maple. These green maples are what we call the mountain maples, Yama Momiji, straight Acer palmatum. It's got beautiful trunk line, and these were probably imported as bonsai this size. They were no bigger than this. It's grown twice the size in the last 20 years, and we are growing them to change the shape of the tree, because I like maples of this size, and also because a lot of my customers that we serve have tastes for maples this size. So let's look at it in detail, and I will just change the view. So let's take a close look at this tree. Now, the trunk is very nice. It's got beautiful taper, and the nebari or the root base is quite nice too. I dare say if you teased away, you will find more surface roots, and all the branches are in the right place. Beautiful taper, you know, broad at the base, tapering there. Although it's been cut, you can see that there is taper going all the way to the top. This green portion is relatively young, and this has been grown by me in the last 7 years to make a new apex. I didn't like the way the tree was veering off to the left-hand side because that was the original apex on that side. But I'm going to make it into a big triangular shape. And if you remember my famous split trunk maple, most of my maples have that sort of style. After all, every person has their own particular style of growing trees. So this resembles the split trunk in many, many respects. Now, if you look at the tree closely, look at these long shoots here. Look at that shoot. That is every bit, I would say, 60 to 70 centimeter long. All these new shoots, 70-meter long shoots, have grown since April of this year. That means May, June, July, not even 3 months, and all these long shoots have grown. If you don't control them, these shoots can become more than a meter long. As you can see, they're reaching the sky, and the tree will become completely unkempt. So even if you didn't do anything, all you really need to do is to prune the outline. So I'm now going to put the camera down and show you what I'm going to do. So the famous Peter Chan approach to styling his trees, especially maples, is to form that dome shape. I don't like to keep saying triangular shape because I'll get people criticizing me that, oh, why are you making all the maples look like pines? They're not made to look like pines. Maples do in fact grow like this, a dome shape rather than a pine shape. So just prune these long shoots off. If you want to, you can just leave about 2 or 3 inches of the current year's growth, and it will make the tree strong. Giving it a haircut. This is what we call giving a haircut, just pruning the long shoots. I don't look at the detail at this stage. I will just prune for the overall shape, overall dome shape at this stage, and then I will go into the detail later on. So once you get this overall effect, you will get encouragement because it will begin to look like a decent bonsai. That's all there is to it. Many people don't even do this. They just leave them to grow and they wonder why they lose the shape completely. Keep the front open. I didn't say much about the front or the back of the tree. Well, this is my preferred front. This side I wouldn't use in a hurry because it leans away. Although whoever buys this tree might decide to change it, but I'm not fussed. But there are so many shoots and such a lot of healthy calcing that you can be sure that whatever you cut would heal very fast. It's amazing how some people prefer what you would consider the back to be the front. It's all a matter of choice. I never say that there is a correct front or a wrong front. If you have a different preference, that's your choice. Now, I always look for ways in which I can improve it. So these branches are springing up a little bit. So what I could do is I could do a little bit of wiring to wire them down. I don't have to, but it might be advisable to do that. And a lot of these inward growing branches, this is where I now look at the inward growing branches and take them out. if I'm to thin it a bit. I'm going to do some very light wiring, nothing heavy, just very light. I won't put the wire very tight, it'll just be like an open coil to guide the branches in the right direction. If the branches are filling a space and that space is correct, I'll leave it. So just flattened it just a shade. Now I'm going to tell you how to manage this pad. This long branch and this lovely fan-shaped formation of the twigs is what we call a pad. If you can see it, that whole area is one pad. All that emanating from this branch, this single branch, this is all one pad. And because it's springing up slightly, I can do one of two things. I can get a bamboo stick. I just went out to get a bamboo stick. See, this is a bamboo stick. If we rest it on the top and secured it there, you can use the stick to press it down, or you can pull the individual branches down and wire it to the base. So I'm going to show you how to do this. So I'm going to take this little bamboo stick. These are little black bamboos that we grow, and the old stems are used for doing all sorts of gardening work. So using this bamboo stick, you see how it's pressing the whole pad down. I can tie the bamboo stick to various points of this pad. I will use tiny bits of wire to tie it. And because it's only training, it doesn't matter if it looks a bit unsightly. It doesn't matter, as long as it does the job. We always say that there are endless ways of inventing and creating new techniques, and all by trial and error. So this bamboo stick trick is an old practice that I've been using for years and years to create flat pads. Rather than wire individual little twiglets, I have placed the stick right across, and I'm now going to pull that stick down. Pull the stick down. And because this tree has been wired into the pot, there are some wires in the pot, and I'm going to use that as the anchor point and guide the wire down. This is what we call guy wires. You see how the whole thing is bending downwards, and I haven't had to wire any of the individual branches. So just secure that wire. So I pull that pad down just by using a bamboo stick. So I've got a flat pad growing there. Don't let anything growing underneath remain. We take them out. So I've got this flat pad arrangement just by putting a bamboo stick across. So you can do that for all the other branches too. And There are lots of new shoots coming. I cut the thick branches off at some point because they were too thick and too long. So I cut the tree back, headed it back. I will show you the calcing that has occurred. And this is a new shoot that is growing. And this will be a nice back branch. I can just guide it in the direction I want just by an open coil of wire. Use the right grade of wire. And I'm linking it to an adjacent branch. I'm just making an open coil to guide it slightly away from the main branch, so it fills the space at the back. And although there's a fork at the top, it is not a defect because the overall effect is very pleasing. A purist would say, oh, you really only need one going up at the top, but because it's just going to be the crown, how does it matter? It doesn't matter one bit. If there are too many branches, I will take some of them out, because if you don't take it out, it will get very congested, and again you may get inverse taper. I keep talking so much about inverse taper. That can be a problem with deciduous trees. Too many branches growing from one point. So this tree has had a lot of chops. I will now show you the detail of the tree. Again, you notice how little I've done to it, and yet the overall effect is very pleasing. So let's show you another angle. Let's take a close look at the tree. Now, my first impression looking at the tree is that it's leaning too much to the left. And when I come to repotting the tree, I may just tilt the tree a little bit. If I can just show you by propping it up with a piece of wood, you understand what I mean. So here we go. See, I think the tree would look better if it propped up to lean a little more to the other side, to the right hand side. So it's only a tiny bit, but this is where the potting angle is so important. Let me see if I can prop it a little more and see what effect it has. Don't want to do it too much. Now I put maybe like 5 degrees slope to it. I think that looks more stable and pleasing. So that is how the future of the tree will look like. Now let me just take a close-up of the tree. So you see how I propped the tree up. That's going to be the future potting angle of the tree, so that it's not leaning too much to the left. And I was telling you about this fork here at the top. Any other person would probably take one of them off, but because it forms a nice crown, I'm not bothered about it. I'll leave it because the overall shape is nice. You don't always have to have a single crown. And I'll show you where this tree has had some very severe cuts because I wanted to change the look of the tree. See how it's callousing here? This was only cut last year because I didn't like the branch coming out from there. So I cut it off and it's healing very well. These are the loose bits of wire. I'm redirecting that branch. It's really an old tree. You can see how the bark is fissured and gnarled. And that is the formation of that pad to this side. So it's got like 2 heads. This is one sort of semi-apex, and the main apex is at the top. So this is really now my back, which has many more branches to give it depth. So this is not the side I'm going to use. And the main side, or the viewing side, is going to be this side. So this is the tree as it will be in future. So when I put it back on the bench, I'm going to prop it like this so that it can grow in this direction. So that's another one done. So very little needs doing, but this is how we refine the maples. Constant pruning the long shoots to get shorter growth and more ramification. Now the next tree I want to show you is this Deshojo. Most of the maples I grow, I like to keep them about 60 to 70 centimeter tall, because this is the size that most of my customers like to have. So this is the reason why I grow them in this size. And these are produced 100% on our nursery, and they are grown from small trees, grown in the field that they're big, and then I chop the top off and grow the branches again. So all this has been grown, these branches have been grown in the last 3 years after chopping the top off. So the trunk is not that thick, but it's still a very nice, elegant looking tree. So let's see what I'm going to do. And as always, these long shoots, look at this, 40 to 60 centimeter long. All these long shoots, this almost 70 centimeter, all grown since April of this year. And if you don't trim it, it gets too long. So the first thing I do is to just trim them back. It helps to produce ramification. Even if I didn't do anything else, simply doing that would benefit the tree. Give it a roughly a dome shape. And then I will go inside the tree to see how I can refine it better, choosing the branches and all, and creating the pads. So this is how maples grow. If you don't check it, it will just become rampant and become a complete mess. So I have more or less chosen the front like that. I might, when repotting, change it slightly, but basically this is the front. So I know the branches are all over the place. I will just refine some of the branches because they're literally growing in every direction. I want the branches all growing outwards, not inwards. And of course, while you have all these lovely branches growing, it strengthens the branch, makes the branch thicker. You don't want it too thick. Anything hanging down I don't want. So remember that there's still a lot of growing season left. I'm only in the first week in July, so the whole of the summer is still left for it to grow. So we can still get lots of growth. I don't want anything sprouting up too high. See, some branches are growing back on itself, you don't want that. Now these are just straggly shoots there. Do I want it? I don't need that. Why let the plant waste energy there? So we take these off. This tree has a lot of faults. I'm not worried about it. So it'll be priced accordingly when we come to sell it. If it was a perfect tree, it would come out much more money. I can just arrange the pads a little bit by wiring the pad out. I do a little bit of wiring just to help it along, because left to its own devices, the pads may not form in the way I want it to. So these two branches are too close together. I want to separate it. So I'm going to separate it by just doing very light wiring in the form of a coil, coiling it out so that the pad is flat, and of course a herringbone shape. So this is the pad here. Now this is very long, I don't need that, shorten it. Anything growing downwards I don't want, anything growing upwards I don't want, I just want it to grow flat. So those branches have been dealt with. This is a fake branch because it's mainly going this side, but it's filling the space here. So I'll leave it to fill the space here. I'm not too worried about that. And because the Deshojo is mainly grown for its lovely red foliage in the spring, in spring it is such a beautiful tree that whatever faults there are, people tend to overlook the faults. I may make the front somewhere here that I can always change at repotting time. So in February when I repot this tree, I will alter the front very slightly. That branch is doing nothing, take it off. So what I'm doing is directing the energy to the branches that I want to develop. Because if you just leave it to its own devices, it will grow in the wrong direction and all the energy will be wasted in the wrong place. Wire some of these, I don't need this. So it's really refining and choosing the branches I want. Now there's a very funny branch there, I don't know whether you can see it. That will come off. Let me bring the camera closer. See, this is the branch I'm talking about. You see it's growing in the wrong place, filling the space there. I don't want it to go like that. You see? I don't want it to go there, so I'm going to take that one off. So this branch here is going to come off. So you are literally refining the branch structure. And this one is too straight. I may just wire it slightly down and see what happens. It'll give a better shape to the crown. So with why I'm going to wire that, there's a bit of dead branch there, so I'm going to do that. I don't know whether you can see the detail, but there are one or two dead twigs there I'm taking out, and this I'm going to wire downwards, as I said. All these are the prunings from this Deshojo. If anyone was here to take it and propagate, they would get so many plants. But I have too many maples anyway, so I'm not going to propagate anymore. As I say, there's a limit to what I can do, and I shouldn't be too greedy. So at least I'm showing you that some of my maples I do wire. Although it's not often I do it, but I sometimes have to guide it along the right direction by wiring. I think it only needs to be wired for about a year and it should be okay. So this particular maple has got branches starting from quite high up, but it will still be a pretty tree. So this is not a very good, what we call specimen. So because it's not such a pretty tree, we won't charge much for it. So many people wonder why certain trees cost more than others, and it's because they look more beautiful. So these cuts on the ceiling. So that's one done. So in an evening, it's now about 7:10. I've been working about 1.5 hours or 1 3/4 hours, and I've gone through about 3 or 4 major trees, and I've been fiddling with small trees as well. So this is how I spend the evening, refining the trees, and that's not all, there's more to come.